I'm Simon Hartzell, and this is NAI Global's Diving into Commercial Real Estate.
Welcome to another episode of NAI Global's Diving into Commercial Real Estate. We're very excited today because this is our first time we're doing a two-part series with a firm called Valuation Alliance. Also a first time that we have two individuals on the phone with us here today and recording these two individual podcasts. So the topic for this podcast is called succession planning. I know there's a lot of buzz out there about succession planning, and we're going to get into all the nitty-gritty here today. Our guests are Obie Walli, founder and managing partner of Valuation Alliance, along with the managing partner, Fred Schmidt. And I'd like to welcome you guys both here today.
This is Fred.
Thanks for
you,
having
Simon.
us.
And, yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
as we're recording this, obviously we're all in lockdown because of the virus and everything, and just want to wish the NAI family, everybody, good health, and whatever we can do to be of assistance to you all, we're there for you. So
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. Let's talk about. I'm going to give a little bit of background on your firm, and then go into your backgrounds as we discuss in each podcast here. But Valuation Alliance is a consulting and advisory firm that specializes in servicing the privately held commercial real estate brokerage companies and their respective ownership interest as well. Valuation Alliance provides a range of quality and supportive services for their clients. Again, specifically focusing in on commercial real estate brokerage companies, property management companies, startup and early stage commercial brokerage companies. So I'm excited to have you guys both here today. I'm going to jump right into it with questions and start off with Fred. Tell us a little bit about your background.
sure. I'm 40 years in the commercial real estate services business. My first 20 were with CB Richard Ellis. 14 years as an agent, working primarily in tenant rep and corporate services, and I sandwiched that right in the middle of a 20-year tenure with 6 years as an operating manager, running 3 different offices for CBRE, and then moved back into the cubes and into corporate services and tenant rep. Moved into a small boutique corporate services firm that was for 4 years, and then sold that to Johnson Controls, and then became part of the Realogy family of companies, where I ran the business development corporate services service platform for 8 years, also all the training for the commercial real estate agents, and then became the president and COO. That's where Obie and I crossed tracks with each other, by the way, and ran that operation until about 2 years ago, where I retired from the business and moved into Valuation Alliance with Obie.
Nice. And now you kind of answered and kind of segued right into succession planning itself. How is this important from your understanding and your experience with the number of years you have in the business? And I guess a follow-up question to that is, why have one?
Well, I think first of all, and I'll give you a real life story that I've shared over the years during my presidency and running a network, and the necessity for it. But it's extremely important, and certainly for the broker. And Obie and I specialize only in commercial real estate services firms. And all of you in the NAI family know this, that your assets walk in the morning and leave in the afternoon. We have elevator assets, as they call them. And the revenue streams are literally staring you in the face every day. So preserving that and understanding what it takes to continue with that is extremely important. I'll get into some statistics later on what that means if you don't do that type of thing. But I will also will say, and I'll use a story, if you will, if it's all right with you, Simon. I'll take a couple minutes just to give the story that I think bears it out. About 10 years ago now, we had an office in Louisiana. When I was the president, and I received a call on a Monday morning. The person that was running, the owner and operator of this affiliate, was missing, and he was a boater. And what happened was he was getting on his boat. I'm a boater, by the way. He was getting on his boat, off his boat, I should say. They were in the bayou in Louisiana, and they were pleasure cruising. His wife and two friends, they went back to their yacht club there, and he had an ice cooler and was getting off the boat. And as he was putting the cooler on the deck, he literally fell, hit his head, and went into the water and disappeared, tragically. And no one found him. He was, unfortunately, he drowned and everything. I received the call on a Monday morning, and this was about a $5.5 to $6 million a year business. We sent our team down. There was no succession plan in place. There wasn't any kind of documentation on what to do with the business. There was a will, the usual things. And I think one of the points is having a will is extremely important, and having, distribution of your assets is very important, but, no operating agreement on what to do with the business. He was very fortunate in that we were able to find a local affiliate that was going to take over and run the business and step in. The widow, his wife, this guy was a great guy, by the way. Everybody liked him. Good firm. Stabilized. All the agents could have walked right at that moment, and that's not uncommon when things like that go on. And they didn't. They stayed put. We were able to stabilize it and put a plan together to hand the business over. The widow, she actually received a percentage of the business for about a 10-year period, and it was handed over. So she came out relatively well, but without a plan in place, it was very fortuitous and lucky. So I don't mean to be dark on this or anything, but it was it illustrated to me the reasoning behind having a succession plan in place.
Well, I think that's important because it shows that you never know. I mean, those unforeseen things come up. And how long was this company in business prior to this tragedy happening?
Oh, my goodness, about a 25, 30-year business. Family run, very well run, very good, very organized. So, no, they were a good group here.
So, and 30 years, they haven't developed a succession plan. And I know there's going to be folks listening to this that are in the same boat. So when should you have and set up or start thinking about and putting together a succession plan?
Our answer is do it now. Don't wait, set it up now. Control your destiny before someone else does. Okay, like that scenario we were just talking about there. Certainly when your business has any kind of value, you certainly should be looking at that. And given the current environment, I would suspect with the virus and everything, and not because of the virus, but when you go through a sea change, a seismic change, like where a lot of folks are looking at what the future entails literally for themselves and for their businesses. And so probably now more than ever, it's important to start looking at those considerations. So we say as soon as possible. I will tell you, though, we generally say if you're thinking of retiring or stepping down or reducing your load in terms of leading the business or running it, most commercial real estate firms and owners and managers are player coaches typically, and I know in the NAI network there's a lot of them. They don't want to be running the business day to day or whatever, but so we see a lot of people who can work until their 70s or 80s, which is great, but they don't want to be running the business. So we generally say 5 years out. Give yourself, it takes about 5 years to affect a true succession.
That's a good point, because people think that they can just hand over the keys or that their business is worth, and we'll talk more about this on our second session, but is worth more than it is, or they have a number in mind, but the market may speak differently. So talk to us maybe of an example, and we talked prior to having this call, but maybe you can give an example of companies you've spoken to that maybe a little late to think about this and have come in kind of late in the game of their career, and really it should have been done 5 years ago, where they're trying to plan their next step in their life and career. Do you have anything off the top of your head you could talk about?
Well, we're working with a lot of companies, some NAI companies here, and some are very well positioned for succession. One company, not an NAI company we're dealing with right now, where the founder, very successful company in the southwestern United States, the founder is 80 years old. And he has, to his credit, he has a partner that's about 49%. He's 51% owner. The partner's 49%. He's in his mid 40s, and we spoke on a like this type of a venue, a podcast, and he called it the younger partner called us up, and we were on the call with the 80-year-old founder, who's very vibrant, I might add, very successful, very good. And he said, "Yeah, guys, I was thinking about maybe I should do something now." And of course, we were both laughing to ourselves, like, "Really?" So, but that goes on quite a bit. And we all think you're going to go on forever and do things. So, the transition needs to occur sooner. Now, to his credit, to their credit, the partner, the other partner, is a very capable and could run the business. So, God forbid, if something happened to the senior partner, that business could be taken over and run. Although the junior partner, the minority partner, I might add, who's 49%, he called us to really talk about that transition, to have navigate from the majority owner to him, and what are the steps they're going to include, how do you bring partners in, and all those different elements. But they were, at least this person was groomed and taught to run the business over a period of time, and therefore a smooth succession will occur. But even with that, they still were looking for assistance in making that transition.
It seems like you guys have come across a lot of cases where people have gotten lucky. Like, they didn't have a succession plan in place, but they had their folks trained, or they had certain pieces in place that would be part of a succession plan, but not the full succession plan. Is that something that you can reinforce or agree with?
I think the fact of the matter is that the statistics are pretty stark on this, and this is dealing with the commercial real estate. This is we have stats from CEL Associates, which is Chris Lee, which is a think tank for the commercial real estate business. He focuses more on the property and asset management side, but he also surveys brokerages. And the statistics are that only 15% of small to medium-sized commercial real estate firms have a succession plan. What's even more stark is only 30% of them survive into the second or third generation. So it's not as good as it appears to be. And so therefore, for small to medium businesses, it needs to occur, and it has to. And when you look at I go to an NAI conference or SAOR, Obie and I spoke at SAOR in Portland about 3 months ago. When you look at the room, most of the owners and leaders are baby boomers like myself, and they're 55, 60 and over, and that's why we're ringing the gong on this at this point in time. Say, hey, now is the time to start thinking about this and to start looking at this. And again, because of your elevator assets and all those elements. So unfortunately, a lot of companies do have plans, so I don't want to act like they don't, but a lot of them, we're finding that more don't. And that's why, frankly, that's why we have this part of the business set up.
Well, it sounds like it's also important, if you have one, get a third party to review it. Have you guys come in and say, hey, let's do a little due diligence on what we've written, or maybe we've written it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it could be outdated based on where we're at in society, economy, so on and so forth. So I think you're spot on with what you're saying and how it's important. Now, how do you find succession planning helping or hurting someone's revenue within the organization?
Well, I don't think it hurts the revenue. I think it helps to sustain it. It actually, if you're an owner or a leader, it's actually could become an annuity for you in terms of the different ways you can sell your business or transfer your business over. And we do a lot of that with companies. Also, and that's the reason we say the 5 years out is, who is your successor going to be, or successors? Okay, it may not be one person, it may be a group of people. And then training those people and developing a training program for the future leaders and a timetable and planning your own retirement and, those different elements and how you move that forward. A lot of the folks that are in this business are very successful leaders and owners or founders and entrepreneurs have been extremely successful, and they manifest a lot of different skill sets that may not be manifested in the next person coming up. They may be stronger in certain areas and not in others. So having that plan in place and coaching them through those steps, or coaching your successors through those steps, is extremely important. You also find that the person you want to be your successor may not be qualified or have the ability to do that, or you discover that they don't want to do it. And that goes on in corporate America all the time. So,
well, the more and more we talk about this, and I hope the audience that's listening, it resonates with them, is I can see where succession planning is an important piece, but it's not the only piece. Talking about what your succession plan looks like, if it's going to be an internal succession plan, or if your plan is to sell the company, then the valuation piece, which we're going to talk about in the next episode, is going to be just as important, because you're missing out on the total picture if you just do succession planning, or you just get a valuation of your firm. And that's from my perspective. You guys may agree or disagree, but I think you need to have a holistic approach when you're looking at this.
You absolutely do, and you have to look at your numbers. And Obie will get into that and what the numbers are and how they should look, how to present yourself as a company if you're selling internally, to set of sort of facts and numbers, and also selling externally. We generally look at the external view. It's kind of like a broker's approach to value, looking at the marketplace, but also there's an internal sell. There's dynamics and a lot of elements that you can go into. I will also say to you that we've developed a tool, given the tremendous change that we're going through right now with people working from home and everything else. And we have a program called the Virtual COO program that we're putting in place. That's a very quick, short way to look at your business, do a current state analysis, and develop that tool, very economical. And so we'll be glad to share that with you and post it with the team at a later date and time, recognizing what's going on in the marketplace right now.
That's interesting. Yeah, that'll be interesting to learn more about. Now, you kind of alluded to my next question, which who should participate in a succession plan? Which individuals or professionals within a firm?
Well, I think at first, certainly the owner, manager, leader, the person that's running the business, and they should choose and discuss judiciously, I might add, with the partners or successors that they're looking to bring in, and set up the platform for that. They may not know who that person or persons will be. They may be looking to bring in people from outside. So it's setting up the framework or the platform for it, with the idea that you can plug people in, and what that means. And Obie will get into this economically, but also what it means in terms of a planning element.
Okay. And quickly, give me.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. All the key stakeholders all the key stakeholders in your business, though, your leadership team, and those people should be made aware of it and should be discussed with them. And I think that alone is a discovery process with your own people.
Yeah, kind of how you mentioned earlier, you might find somebody that you think is going to be a leader, but they may not be prepared to be a leader, or have the skill sets to be a leader, or want to be a leader. So it's important to have that communication from top down, as you're suggesting.
I might also add, we're talking about the assets walking in the morning and leaving in the afternoon. A succession plan also can be what we call golden handcuffs. In other words, if you're looking at interests or profit sharing with key agents and people to hold on to them through this transition, this is a moment to start looking at how you're going to transition those types of things to keep people on board.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, because that's a big challenge within just our industry overall, is understanding how or what's the best way to retain employees, management, partners within an organization. So I'm sure we could spend another hour talking about just recruiting and retaining the talent.
Right, and just circling back to that case study I talked about, that was the single biggest concern, obviously, was you had an office, $5 to $6 million a year office, and all the key people there. And we were very proud of the fact we were able to hold on to 100% of the people, and they stayed on board. Now, that was a testimony to the leadership and loyalty to the owner and founder, but that doesn't go on. We have found, based on our knowledge.
Well, maybe And I think that's a great point. Maybe you can quickly give us a sense of what are the steps or the bullet points of developing a succession plan. What are the key pieces?
I think you want to, we talked a little bit about this, is choosing who your successors are going to be, develop a training program for those people, set a timetable, communicate, do this as a separate, it should tie in with your overall planning for your office, but it should be documented, and then execute the plan. And it's better, we say to a lot of clients, you know, we help them in putting plans together, strategic planning, and generally you'll have a lot of goals and objectives. And we always say it's better to take 3 or 4 key items and execute it 100% than to take 5 or 10 key items and execute it 50%. So that's the one piece of advice that and throughout my career I've lived that. So work on something till you get it done 100% versus trying to do a little bit of everything, which tends to be the case when you're running an organization.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of useful, you're going over a lot of topics and we're doing this in a very short time, but I think if our audience is really hearing what you're saying, is there's a lot of moving pieces. And I think there's a good amount of things that I would love to get follow up on if I were a business owner. So I appreciate you kind of going over this and giving us a high level view of succession planning from your perspective. Let's jump into a couple like more challenging questions. And I'm kind of segueing towards our final questions here in the podcast, but everyone's kind of dealing with the current environment. What's the biggest TV show you're watching right now?
My daughter and wife were watching last night, and I like to watch military history and YouTube and all that. I'm a history buff and everything, but the show, The Tiger King, I don't know if you've watched this thing.
Yeah, I keep hearing things about it.
So I watched it last night, and the characters, if you were to write characters, it's like Game of Thrones, except it's real life, but not Game of Thrones, but the characters are so vivid that I couldn't believe it. Like, if it was fiction, you wouldn't believe these people. So I'm watching The Tiger King just because my wife and daughter are watching it. So, but I generally watch a lot of military history and historical stuff is generally my thing. And through YouTube, that's typically where I go.
Nice. Yeah, I'm kind of, you haven't figured it out, trying to segue into some more fun questions here. So I got one more.
Yeah.
One more for you, and this is again kind of pertinent to the current environment that we're living in. But once the dust settles, do you guys have your eye on a place you'd want to visit or get out of town or travel to once you can?
Oh my goodness. Well, I've done. As Obie has, I've traveled throughout my career probably 85 to 100,000 miles a year on an airplane just through work. And I'm sure Jay and a lot of the NAI team does the same thing. So I've always been blessed to see a lot of the world, a lot of this country. But I probably would go, we went to the Canadian Rockies up by Banff and that road there. And so I find myself going on YouTube and watching that ride from Banff to Jasper. It's one of the most spectacular rides I've ever seen. So I think in my mind, that's where I'd go to. Yeah, it's just a beautiful spot. That's not to say there aren't beautiful spots all over North America and everything, but that's the one I keep going to in my head.
Perfect. Well, again, Fred, Obie, this is all great stuff. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I'd like to thank you both for joining me on part 1 here today. We're going to segue here shortly into the second part of this podcast. And if our audience is listening, and again, I think there's a lot of great pieces that we're going over here and that we'll continue to go over in our next podcast, but what's the best way to get a hold of you, Fred, if somebody is questioning or trying to develop their succession plan?
I think, first of all, we have our slides from our NAI conference, I believe, are posted on the NAI site. And it's fred@valuationalliance.com. And my number is 908-377-1616. 908-377-1616.
Great. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. And if you'd like to find out more about NAI, please email us at help@naiglobal.com. Thank you for listening.